Dennis Rodman looks nothing like the typical NBA superstar. While most big names in basketball stand out for their scoring prowess or traditional athletic ability, Rodman became a legend thanks to his boundless defensive energy, his unstoppable rebounding, and, of course, his flamboyant personality. With his ever-changing hair colors, piercings, tattoos, and behavior that often challenged authority, the Worm, a childhood nickname, turned into an icon of 1990s rebellion. Yet, beyond the media spectacle, Dennis Rodman was, and still is, celebrated as one of the greatest rebounders the sport has ever seen. His journey, from a difficult upbringing to multiple championship rings, shows that someone can reach the summit of basketball by dedicating themselves to a role that's often overlooked, winning possessions through rebounding and playing ferocious defense. To understand how he got to the top, it's worth revisiting his turbulent youth. Dennis Keith Rodman was born on May 13, 1961, in Trenton, New Jersey, but spent much of his childhood and adolescence in Dallas, Texas. He had a chaotic family life, with many personal struggles linked to an absent father and a complex relationship with his mother. In high school, he didn't stand out athletically. He was relatively short as a teen and only went through a major growth spurt after turning 18. He spent a while working in airports with limited prospects, until his sudden height increase took him to junior college basketball courts. He played at Cook County Junior College and then transferred to Southeastern Oklahoma State in the NAIA, where he began showcasing the impressive defensive and rebounding skills that would define his future. By the end of his college stint, he caught the eye of scouts and was selected in the second round of the 1986 NBA draft by the Detroit Pistons. Despite being a relatively low draft pick, Rodman fit perfectly into the hard-nosed, aggressive style of the late 80s Pistons, known as the Bad Boy. With Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and Bill Laimbeer, the team embodied a philosophy of contact, provocation, and raw intensity. Rodman, young, energetic, and defensively versatile, slotted in seamlessly. It was with the Detroit Pistons that he discovered how to shine without having to score many points. His willingness to fight for every rebound, sacrifice his body, and guard the opponent's best scorer made him essential in the franchise's back-to-back titles in 1989 and 1990. That's where the legend of the Rebound King began taking shape. After those two rings, Rodman went through a period of internal turmoil. The departure of Pistons head coach Chuck Daly, a mentor figure, unsettled him emotionally. He faced personal crises. He was once found in his car with a loaded gun, hinting at suicidal thoughts. Yet ultimately, Rodman found a way to channel his personal issues through basketball, and, in a sense, through an ever more daring and rebellious public persona. Gone was the shy young man who only focused on defense. Suddenly, he embraced radical self-expression. He dyed his hair in bright colors, got tattoos, wore piercings, began showing up at parties, and involved himself in controversy. This rebellious side would become his career trademark. Still, his wild off-court behavior didn't eclipse his talent. In 1993, he was traded to the San Antonio Spurs, where he indulged in an even more headline-grabbing nightlife, famously dating pop icon Madonna. On the court, he continued to collect rebounds like no one else. He led the league in rebounds for 7 consecutive seasons, 1991 to 1998, a record. His uncanny ability to predict the ball's bounce, his sense of positioning, strength, and sheer determination made him legendary. He compensated for his relatively modest height for a power forward, 6 feet 6 inches or 1.98 m, with leaping ability, timing, and a tenacity rarely seen. He could go head-to-head with centers who stood 4 or 5 inches taller, all because of his single-minded obsession with claiming every loose ball. In interviews, Rodman often stressed that he studied angles and shot trajectories, analyzing how each player tended to miss and where the ball might ricochet, a uniquely scientific dedication to rebounding almost no one else ever matched. In 1995, Rodman's biggest career twist came when he was traded to the Chicago Bulls, joining Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. The Bulls, coming off a disappointing season following Jordan's first retirement, sought to restore their dominance. At first glance, a partnership between two offensive superstars and a controversial figure like Rodman seemed improbable. But head coach Phil Jackson placed his bet, and it paid off. Jackson had a knack for handling strong personalities, as seen in his work with Jordan, Pippen, and, later, Kobe Bryant, and found a way to harness Rodman's energy for the team's benefit, accepting his unconventional side as long as it didn't harm the squad. The result was immediate. With Rodman dominating the boards and anchoring the defense, the Bulls became practically unbeatable. In 1996, they compiled their legendary 72-10 regular season record, surpassed only by the 73-win Golden State Warriors in 2016, and won the NBA title, the first of a second three-peat for Jordan and Pippen. That same year, Rodman led the league in rebounding, averaging 14.9 and outmuscled opponents much bigger than he was. He would again be the NBA's top rebounder in 1997 and 1998. Though he averaged few points, he was indispensable to Chicago's championship machine. His battles with Karl Malone of the Utah Jazz in the 1997 and 1998 finals became legendary. Rodman tormented Malone, both physically and psychologically, while the mailman struggled to keep cool under Rodman's non-stop pushing and trash talk. All of it played out under intense media scrutiny, which captured Rodman's flamboyant outfits, ever-changing hair, and provocative interview. After that 1998 three-peat, the Bulls disbanded. Jordan retired for the second time, Phil Jackson left, and Pippen was traded away. Rodman had brief, lackluster stints with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks, but he was in decline, and his off-court antics now drew more attention than his game. He left the NBA with career averages of 13.1 rebounds and a scant 7.3 points, but with 5 rings, 2 with the Pistons, 3 with the Bulls, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 1990, 1991, and 7 consecutive rebounding titles. In 2011, he was enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, a crowning acknowledgement for a player who had influenced the sport chiefly through defense and rebounding, a rarity in a league that values scoring above all else. Rodman's legacy goes beyond his rebounding stats or his championship hardware. He ignited debates about individuality and personal expression in an era when the NBA still held to a more conservative code of conduct. He paved the way for other players to feel comfortable embracing flamboyant or out-of-the-box public identity. His lifestyle, loaded with controversies and excesses, attracted criticism but also fascination from fans, who recognized in him proof that the sport could accommodate maverick personalities at the highest level of competition. On the court, Rodman showed that a team doesn't need only scorers or offensive stars. He elevated the art of defense and rebounding to unprecedented levels, proving himself decisive even while scoring very little. Many times, he'd finish a game with 0 or 2 points but snag 20-plus rebounds, making all the difference in a tight contest. His defensive style encompassed impressive versatility, as he could guard perimeter players and tall centers alike, switching on screens and using both agility and brute force. There were games in which he completely shut down much taller and stronger players, thanks to his unrelenting physical and emotional commitment to every possession. Naturally, Rodman's persona was hardly confined to a well-managed show. He frequently ran into controversy, fighting with referees, racking up technical fouls, getting ejected for incidents like kicking a courtside cameraman. He had high-profile relationships, Madonna, actress Carmen Electra, and even ventured into pro wrestling. In many ways, he was a precursor to an era in which sports can merge with pop culture spectacle. At a time when the NBA was undergoing worldwide expansion, helped by Michael Jordan's global stardom and the epic plays of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, Rodman was, in his own way, an added ingredient of curiosity and audience draw. Still, what keeps Dennis Rodman etched in collective memory as one of basketball's most notable figures goes beyond punk fashion or off-court theatrics. His defensive game was top-tier, and his rebounding dominance, especially on the offensive glass, was extraordinarily efficient. His prime arrived in the mid-1990s, when he fused athleticism, instinct, and an iron will, regularly grabbing 15 to 18 rebounds per game. Some nights, he pulled down 30 or more. That demanded extreme fitness and, above all, a mental intensity which, according to Rodman himself, stemmed from his desire to prove that one didn't need to average 30 points to influence the outcome of a game. At his peak, people often wondered how a 6 feet 6 inches, 1.98 meters, player could out-rebound centers towering over 7 feet tall. The answers ranged from his uncanny knack for reading shots to his ability to slide into the perfect spot in the paint at exactly the right moment. Additionally, Rodman used rebounding techniques that verged on the edge of illegal contact, small shoves, tugs on jerseys, subtle pushes that hovered near offensive or flagrant fouls. He capitalized on his bad boy reputation to intimidate opponents or bait them into losing focus. Sometimes he resorted to provocative trash talk, leading the opposition to lose composure and make mistakes. Dennis was as gifted psychologically as he was physically. After retiring, Rodman dabbled in various public appearances, led a personal life beset by frequent troubles, financial struggles, and brushes with the law. Occasionally, he still pops up in the news, whether for offbeat diplomatic visits to North Korea or for bizarre comment. But in basketball circles, people still remember him first and foremost as the Worm, who revolutionized how we think about the roles of defense and rebounding. In 2011, when enshrined in the Hall of Fame, Rodman himself became emotional recalling coaches like Chuck Daly and Phil Jackson, who entrusted him with freedom to be himself as long as he carried out his defensive responsibilities on the court. One can say Dennis Rodman remains living proof that a player can reach the NBA's pantheon largely by mastering rebounds and defense, two facets that standard box scores rarely praise the way they do scoring. He showed the importance of dirty work, physical battles, scrambling for loose balls, and relentless hustle even without the offensive spotlight. In a league enthralled by prolific scorers, Rodman broke paradigms. He became an unlikely hero, both controversial and admired, defiant and victorious. Even decades after his playing days, his name resurfaces whenever talk turns to supreme defensive intensity or legendary rebounding. Contemporary peers describe him as a relentlessly competitive spirit, hurling himself into the stands for a loose ball or snatching rebounds away from towering centers, never complaining about his lack of offensive role. Fans adored him for his grit and the spectacle he delivered every game. Simultaneously, the league found in him a near antithesis to the squeaky clean stars, further illustrating basketball's breadth of personalities. In essence, Dennis Rodman's tale is one of rebellion and dominance, but also a story of how a player discovered his vital niche in basketball, proving you don't need 30 points per game to be indispensable. His rebellious streak transcended sports, shaped attitudes, made headlines, and forged a bad boy image in Detroit, San Antonio, and especially in Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen's Chicago. Meanwhile, his mastery on the glass and on defense remained indisputable. Rodman took home 5 NBA titles and, above all, a legacy that goes far beyond numbers. In a league awash with offensive superstars, he showed that desire, positional technique, and total commitment to every possession can create a legend. The legend of the Worm, who still inspires those who believe that defense and hard work can be every bit as decisive as scoring when it comes to winning titles.